Hi everyone, let's get our materials ready for this video. We'll want to have our pencil crayon techniques worksheet, as well as a handful of pencil crayons. Whatever colors you feel like working with are going to be perfect for this. A few other things that you might want to keep handy is a pencil sharpener. You'll see I have a scrap of paper off to the side, and a few other things. I've got a pencil and a white pencil crayon and a black fine point marker. We might not use all of these things, but it's good to have them around. Let's get started. One thing to think about throughout this video is how you're holding your pencil. The further from the point your fingers are holding the pencil, the easier it will be for you to apply light pressure. As you walk your fingers closer to the point, the easier it will be for you to apply more pressure and create deeper tones. Let's try this out as we work on our first technique, the back and forth stroke. Now the back and forth stroke is exactly what it sounds like. You're shading in this area, moving the pencil back and forth. You've probably been drawing this way since you've ever been able to hold a pencil. You can see that I have moved my fingers up to about the midpoint of the pencil. It's allowing me to press a little bit harder and apply a slightly darker tone than the first area that I was working on in this circle. And I'm ready to walk my fingers up to the point now so that I'll be able to press really hard and get a much darker tone in this third area of the circle. I'm going to change to a different color. I invite you to change to whatever color you'd like to use next as we explore Scumbling. And just like the back and forth stroke, you probably already know how to do this technique without ever having taken an art lesson. Scumbling involves drawing continuous tiny circles to shade in an area. It's a really great way to create a little more texture than what you're going to get from that back and forth stroke. You might notice that I am again working from light to dark as I practice this scumbling technique. And that's just because I know for me personally, I tend to press a little bit harder. And so I'm taking this opportunity to practice having that control as I work. The next technique we'll be experimenting with is called hatching. Hatching is just drawing a series of lines that move in the same direction as one another or parallel to one another. You might notice that the more closely your lines are drawn together, the darker the color starts to appear. Next, we're going to try out cross-hatching, which is just drawing another set of lines in the opposite direction as the lines that we drew out first. So they're literally moving across the first set of lines. The next technique we're going to experiment with is called stippling. And stippling involves placing tiny dots on your paper. The dots can be close together, or they can be far apart, or anywhere in between. You can practice stippling by just tapping the point of your pencil crayon to the paper, or you can try giving it a little bit of a twist, or you could even go so far as to actually draw tiny circles and coloring them in. You might also try experimenting with how sharp or dull the point of your pencil is to see what sort of effects happen as you're stippling. This next technique is a variation on scumbling. I'm going to sharpen my pencil up for this one. And rather than just only drawing circles this time, you'll see that my pencil is kind of moving all over. It makes loops, it backs and doubles over, sometimes it just makes a sharp right hand turn somewhere. This is a really great, messy, fun kind of technique that allows you to create a lot of really fun, rough textures in your drawings. We are going to experiment with layering and blending next. So I'm going to start with this yellow, and I'm just going to shade in the entire area of this circle. I'm going to grab another color now, and you know what's so great about layering is that this is an opportunity for you to maybe make a color that you don't already have in your kit of pencil crayons. Now I'm going to use my index finger to blend these colors together. It'll make it a little bit smoother. You could also try an eraser or a Q-tip or a tissue. Let's experiment with another layering technique. Going to start just shading in this area in one color. And this time with a different color, I'm going to shade over across the original grain or direction that I shaded in. And this time you can try using the white pencil crayon to blend the colors. This might add a little bit of a lighter tone to it, or maybe a little bit of a milky quality. This time I'm going to explore shading from light to dark again, but imagining a point of light shining and casting a shadow. So I'm imagining that there is a light shining from about the top right-hand quarter of this sphere that I'm shading in. And that is going to cast a shadow going darker and kind of making a bit of a curve as we get to the bottom. Now, my pencil's a little too sharp, so I'm going to use this scrap of paper just to get a dull, softer, easier to blend point as I work. Now, the reason for that crescent-shaped shadow along the bottom edge that I was describing is because we're imagining that this isn't a flat circle anymore, but a sphere or a ball or a globe. And as the light shines from the top, things get really light and then casts a shadow below, and the roundness helps to create that shadow. Now in this last row, I've decided that I'm going to use my black marker and experiment with these techniques that we have already been exploring with pencil crayon. And friends, I would like to invite you to explore whatever techniques, whatever colors, whatever layering combinations you would like to experiment with in this last row for yourself. See that I have completed one circle with the hatching technique, and now I have moved on to stippling. I'd like to point out again here as I'm working in stippling how the closer together you place your dots, the darker that area will become. I'm going to experiment with that wonky, scribbly kind of scumbling technique here. I think this is going to be a really fun technique to layer a black marker scumbling over a pencil crayon shaded area. In this last circle, I'm experimenting with a hatching technique where I'm just taking dashes and moving them around in a spiral, moving tighter and tighter and smaller into the center of the circle. Now friends, just because we have completed this worksheet doesn't mean that you have to be done experimenting. Feel free to try out other combinations, layers, colors, whatever you do, just keep having fun.